चिन्वता मज्जता पवन चलन आत्मनिष्ठो देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकं स्वाहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तत भावशुक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भाव भावयुत कुतो वरधिय दृष्टात्मनिष्ठात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं. Namo Ramana. In this, the Thursday Satsang from Ramanacentre Center for Learning, it has been our practice to read 2 verses from Guruvachaka Kovai, the work by Muruganar Swamigal. Each verse reading will be followed by a short meditation on its meaning, and that shall be followed by a practice session of Atma Vicharam for 10 minutes. After these 2 segments of verse reading, meditation on meaning, and the practice of Atma Vicharam are completed, today there will be summing up remarks from our President, Dr.Sarada, and that shall be followed by the offering of the Sri Ramanastotram. The chanting will be by Vaibhavji and Prarthanama. And today, as the floral offering team is not in town, we shall offer ourselves once again in Atma Vicharam by inquiring who is listening to the holy mantra of Ashtotram. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us begin this satsang by taking up the first verse selected for us, verse number 337. 337, we find in this segment investigation into truth. The other 2 segments that follow are meditation on the truth and the anubhava or experience of the truth. Verse 337 is in the subsegment Brahma Vidya, the method of knowing Brahman. Brahma Vidya, the method of knowing Brahman. Verse 337, there is a note by Muruganar Swamigal also. We will read through both. The mind remains simultaneously as all these 3. the world that is imaginary, like water in a mirage, the jiva that takes the form of the ego who perceives through Supta that world as an object, the sight of the eyes which are endowed with light, only seeing without seeing the reality, the mere ash that remains as the residue when the form of that mind is burnt without a trace, living merely its name is Brahma Vidya, the vision of God. The rest, all other kinds of knowledge, is not that. The verse again. The mind remains simultaneously as all these three. The world that is imaginary, like water in a mirage. The jiva that takes the form of the ego, who perceives through Supta that world as an object, number 2. Number 3, the sight of the eyes, the consciousness, the light with which we see, that is the third, the Ishvara's Sannidhi, which are endowed with light. Only seeing without seeing. All these three are the mind only. The mind only takes the form of Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. The Jagat is described as a mirage that is appearing in front. The Jiva is the perceiver with Supta and the Ishvara Shakti is the light in which this perception takes place, or the light endowed to the eye for it to see. Only seeing without seeing the reality. The mere ash that remains as the residue when the form of that mind is burnt without a trace, leaving merely its name, is Brahma Vidya, the vision of God. The rest, all other kinds of knowledge, is not that. Muruganar. As the Triputis do not exist without the mind, they are wholly mind. When the form of the mind, whose nature is thought, is destroyed, what remains is pure consciousness. Only seeing that pure consciousness is said to be Brahma Vidya. When we are seeing the pure consciousness with consciousness, then Bhagavan's teaching of Brahma Vidya has become a reality within. Arunagirinadar says that Lord Murugar taught him that knowing consciousness is knowing reality. Arivai, Ariyum, Arive, Porul. Arivai, Ariyum, Arive, Porul. Manikavachakar says that Lord Shiva destroyed his mind defilement and transformed him into Shiva. These citations explain elegantly the truth of the above statement. Only seeing the pure consciousness is said to be Brahma Vidya. When Vai Muruganar Swami is saying this, when we are in that, we should clearly have the understanding now is the true darshanam. That Drishyavaritam Chittamatmana Chitva Darshanam Tattva Darshanam, says Bhagavan. The sight of the eyes is objectifying consciousness, Supta, and what remains after the mind has been totally burned is pure consciousness, Suddha Ariv. The two of them are therefore very different from each other. The latter, pure consciousness, the pure being, is God's transcendent Vibhuti, Paravibhuti, and hence it has been described as the mere ash that remains as the residue. Because Supta has been burnt up, seeing the residual consciousness has been termed as seeing without seeing, that is being. Since the remaining reality is self-shining, seeing it is self-becoming clear to itself as itself. The Triputi differences do not exist there. Out of the Triputis, not only the seen but also the seer and seeing are concepts. They can therefore also be included in the water in the mirage. The inseparable merging of the Shakti, whose form is the mind, with the Atma Swarupa, the Shivam, is the state of union signified as Asi, Tat Tvam Asi. Bhagavan, of course, gives in Upadesha Saram, Manasam tu kim, Margane Krite, Naiva Manasam. When you inquire into what is the nature of this mind, what is it that appears as mind, for whom is this? When we inquire, one thought after another is eliminated till the Suddha Arivu stands revealed. But what is the mind? According to Vedanta, what is the mind? The Brahma Vidya is taught through these traditional instructions. So it pays to know. That is why this is in the investigation into truth path. To know these components, so that the manana and nididhyasana, the practice of Atma Vicharam, can be done with Shraddha, with complete faith. This is what the Shastras say. This is what Bhagavan gives us Upadesham. Therefore, I can follow it with Shraddha, with absolute faith that this will reveal, in this the truth will stand revealed, all the mind having been burnt. What is the mind? The mind, Muruganar Swamigal says, it is simultaneously. Why the word simultaneously is used? Because to transcend time, the best way is to see it as all the events happening with simultaneity or simultaneously together, so that they appear together and they disappear together. So what is the mind? And in the mind, the Yugapat Srishti becomes clear. When we look out into the senses, it appears as though time is so vast. So many years have gone by, so many years are looked up ahead as the life of the sun, moon, and all that. But the moment you come to mind, all that is present in the mind as thought. So what is this mind? The mind is the world that appears as the mirage in front of us. It is the jiva, the perceiver, who is anxiously feeling that something in the perceived is going to come and save him. Something in the perceived is going to give him happiness. That is, with Suttarivu, he is going out. And the light which he is using, putting to use, he never inquires into that. What is this consciousness which I am limiting through the eyes and seeing as this is the world and this object is better than that? That light is the light in which we see the consciousness. And Bhagavan says, inquire into the nature of the mind, and the mind will be reduced to dust. Now, the dust is not the dust as we see it here. Here, it is that which is para vibhuti, the consciousness which is aware of its own self-luminosity, its own eternal existence. That is the para vibhuti. The wearing of this vibhuti is to remind us of the practice of Atma Vicharam. The moment I remember the vibhuti is here, it is another reminder to start. For whom is this? For whom is this thought? Who am I? And that is the direct way to destroy the mind, the Triputi. The beauty is that aham is the akanta akara vritti, whereas the Triputi is the three divided states, the seer, seeing, and the seen. There is a division between the three entities, whereas in the Paravibhuti, there is the akanda nature, that which is unbroken experience or the unbroken consciousness. That is the difference between the two, that there is no experience as seer, seeing, and seen. There is no goal to be reached. The very experience of this Purana and holding on to it without expecting anything. This Purana absorbs the sadhaka into that. And that is the destruction of the I am the body idea, or that is the destruction of the Triputi, which arises as the mind. The mind which arises as the Triputi stands completely annihilated. And the self-luminous self rises and shines as non. The Mayaham rises and shines. And the practice that Bhagavan gives for this Brahma Vidya is Atmaucharam, is self-enquiry. The Brahma Jnana dawns by itself when the false ego is completely annihilated. And that happens with the direct tending to it, with the attention. And that is what we are going to practice in the next 10 minutes. Let us sit in practice of Brahma Vidya, which Bhagavan has taught to us in a very simple manner. As soon as a thought arises, let the attention not follow it and be a slave to it, but let the attention take care and inquire, for whom has this thought arisen? The answer will come, a singular answer will come. This thought has arisen to me. Who am I? Will take that ray of attention back to its source. That which was running away, dissipating itself with objects, will be going back to its source, the Paravastu. With repeated practice of going back to the source, the ray of sunlight goes back to the sun. The ray of consciousness goes back to the Atman. With repeated practice of dropping the objects and going back to the source, all the proclivities are completely burned and the mind stands burned down and one shines self-luminously as the self. Till that is realized as one's nature, one should practice this Brahma Vidya, this Atma Ucharam with Bhagavan's immense grace. Let us sit in Atma Ucharam for the next 10 minutes. Ujjalji, you will be able to help us out. Thank you.
नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Ramana. We go on to the second verse selected for us. Is verse number 864. 864. We find this in the segment Meditation on the Truth. The subsegment is the destruction of the ego. The subsegment is the destruction of the ego. Verse number 864. He whose ego, the veiling, has subsided in Swarupa consciousness and who has become wholly that, the Swarupa, forever, will, through the disappearance of the I am the body idea, lose all his personal volition, and he will then shine with the blissful state whose nature is peace, flaring up in his heart. This is the destruction of the ego. He whose ego. So the ego is not as, it is just like the book or the chair or the shirt. It is mine. In enquiry, for whom is this I thought arising? Again and again the attention is put on the source of the I thought. He whose ego, the veiling, the ego is the veiling. As we go in Giri Pradakshina, we find a small hillock somewhere before Adiyannamalai. The small hillock will cover the whole hill. The hill is still there. Hill has not gone. Arunachala has not gone anywhere. Arunachala is still there. But this curtain is enough to block the darshana of Arunachala. Similarly, the I am the body idea, the ego, I am the body, the rising of that identification with the body, that is the veiling, that is the covering which obstructs that Brahman, that Swarupa Darshanam. So it is called as the veiling. The ego is called as the veiling. He whose ego, the veiling, has subsided in Swarupa consciousness. The veil has been completely subdued and it has subsided in the Swarupa consciousness, and who has become wholly that forever. Now the Swarupa consciousness is being the Swarupa. It is, Bhagavan says that since the Atma is one, to abide as the self is to have darshan of it. Here, being is seeing. The seeing, knowing, both require Triputi. The seeing and knowing both require Triputi. Whereas in Brahma Jnanam, Swarupa Darshanam, Atma Jnanam, the Triputi is absorbed in the self-luminous self, in the Akanda Akara Atma Vritti. Bhagavan says, hold on to that. Hold on to that. That is your Swarupa. Don't ask anything from it. When we do that, then the I am the body idea is destroyed by the Spurana. And one realizes that one's own Swarupa, one's own form is that Swarupa only, is that self-luminous self only, and one has become wholly that forever. Why the word wholly is used? Because there any partial observation of the other is also not there. The seer seen division is eliminated completely, as the Swarupa can stand alone, as the Spurana can stand alone. So one has wholly become that forever. நாமன்று நாளேது நாடேது நாடும் கால் நாமுடம்பேல் நாள் நாட்டுள் நாம் விடுவோம் நாமுடம்போ நாம் இன்றென்று என்றும் ஒன்று நாடு இங்கங்கு எங்கும் ஒன்று Bhagavan says. Forever the word is used to indicate timelessness, to indicate that time has been consumed, because நான் எழுந்த பின் எல்லாம் எழும். Only if the ego, the veiling arises, all these objective realities arise. Time, place, that only after we travel so much distance, we reach a destination. All these arise only after the veiling, the ego arises. As soon as the ego subsides into the Swarupa, all these subside. That is why one has become wholly the Swarupa forever, says Muruganar Swamigal, will, through the disappearance of the I am the doer idea, lose all his personal volition. There are these two things. As we inquire and hold this Purana, first our doership will go. We will understand that this Purana is the engine. Bhagavan says time and again that when one is traveling in a train, will anyone be foolish enough to carry one's luggage on one's head? No. In our home, the person who comes to help out, in their family, they are building a Shanishwara temple. They are Shanishwara devotees. Every Saturday they have puja. And it is said Shanishwara Bhagavan comes on the person who is there in the home. And they are building a project, a big temple about 50 kilometers from here. So Bhagavan has put those through jivas through terrific tests, through this positive work of constructing a temple, terrific tests. So it is a privilege to remind them and remind myself that will anybody going in a train carry their luggage on their head? This task has been given to you, to me, because when I discuss it with them, it is me there. And it is given to us only to learn surrender. In sharing, I used to say that people will come to you. Who will come to Shanishwara Bhagavan's prayer? Only those who are in dire straits, who are in severe trouble, have been tested by the Dharmadhikari. And unless you are prepared, that is why he has given you this positive work to understand that the engine is carrying the whole load. Put that 5 crores project again and again on to Bhagavan. Don't carry it. And by pirarukku koduppudalla munakke koduttukolga. It is this Purana, which is the Akanda Akara Vritti. We should understand the construction of temple is in the Tripudi. The carrying of the load as apart from us is in the Tripudi. Whereas the Swarupa is Akanda Akara Vritti. The I. So first thing that goes is doership. In Atma Vichara, first thing that goes is doership. That I am doing anything. I am sharing the Brahma Vidya. I am sharing self-enquiry is the first thing that goes. There is clear understanding that that power, the I, is what is arranging everything. You realize that you drive through 22 kilometers in Bengaluru. Your own driving is not even 0.01% of the work. Other 10,000 drivers whom you come across have to be kept on track by that spurana. And this 0.1% that you are doing, that is also having the adhara of this purana. That is the realization. Everything that is done by this purana only. That is of a different plane. That is the adhara to the Triputi. That is the engine. So first thing that goes is, I am the doer idea. And with that goes all volition. That I am doing, the personal volition ends. He will then shine with that blissful state, whose nature is peace, flaring up in his heart. The Spurana will not only consume the I am the doer idea, it will also consume the I am the body separation from the Swarupa. That is when one wholly becomes the Swarupa forever. That when the division in consciousness goes, then where is this doership and all? When the consciousness is undivided and is shining as I, and that is what one is. The ego has been cut asunder and one is the Swarupa. There is nothing to construct, nothing to do. Krityam asti kim swastitim yataha. One who is that Mahayogi, whose ego has been destroyed and he is shining wholly as the Swarupa forever, what is left for him to do? Because in the Akandakara Vritti, Jagad, Aham, Para, the whole creation of all the worlds, the ego and the Ishvara are shining together as I. And that is what you are. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us practice Atma Uchara, which takes us to that Spurana, to the Akanda Akara Atma Vritti, which consumes the veil, which consumes the world, which consumes the Jiva, and also the Ishvara as apart from these two. Because all the three together shine as the Swarupa. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit in this great gift given by Bhagavan out of immense karuna, the Atma Vichara Abhyasa, which he calls as Marga Arjava, the direct path. With his immense grace, let us sit in practice for the next 10 minutes. Ujjwalji, we will trouble you again. Namo Ramanasam.
नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Ramana. I request Akka to give us the summing up remarks. Namo Ramana Akka.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we have been meditating on Bhagavan's teachings through the verses of Muruganar Swami in Guru Vachaka Kovai. And in these two verses, today, he has given us the reaffirmation of the beauty of self-enquiry. In the first verse, we found, Nandakumar ji also explained to us, that the triad, the Triputi, Jiva, Jagat and Paramatma are all actually the same. Bhagavan says in Ulladinarpadu, also in the Sanskrit translated into Saddarshanam, they are all one. Chitretra lokyam cha vilokita cha patah prakashopya bhavatsa ekaha chittiramum parpanum serpadamum arvaniyum attanayum tanam avan. Again in Ashtakam also, Bhagavan says that there is this great Atishaya Shakti. Undu oru porul. There is only one. Undoru porul. Arivolivulame ni. That, oh Arunachala, you are that one being which is Arivu Oli. That is of the nature of knowledge. That is of the nature of grace. It is shining. Unil aladila adishaya shakti. So this great mysterious power called the mind, it actually rises from you and it appears to manifest as a triad. But when we are told in this way that it is all that one, it's all the mind, that's what Bhagavan tells us repeatedly, that it is all only mind and the source of the mind is the I thought. So all the thoughts, all the manifestations, all the Triputi spring only from the I thought. That was the emphasis over here today, and that is very, very significant for us in practice. We need not worry whether a thought pertains to the world, whether a thought pertains to our own body, whether the thought pertains to the Lord. In this Triputi, whether we are thinking about any of these things, it does not matter, says Bhagavan. We can turn it back to the self through self-enquiry. No matter what the experience, no matter whether we are undergoing ourselves some physical turmoil, whether we are undergoing some mental turmoil, or whether we are perceiving that somebody else in the world is undergoing a physical or a mental turmoil, no matter what it is, every perception is only a thought. Every experience for us is only a thought, and this thought is springing from the sense of individuality. Because it springs from the sense of individuality, when that is questioned, when that is reduced to ashes through questioning, when the snake is reduced to ashes through questioning, the rope remains. Actually, even when it is also said, the example is also given, another example of the individuality remaining like a burnt rope. See, the burnt rope, it is burnt, but it may retain its form. If you try to tie something with that rope, it will become impossible to do so. It will be impossible to do so. So the rope may appear to have its form, but it would have lost its capacity to bind. That is what happens when a thought arises, and so sweetly Nandakumarji told us, it arises because it thinks. It can, the I thinks it can achieve something. It can get some happiness by grasping a thought and moving through that thought. And I may tell myself there is no happiness outside, but that is good. Even though that is good, it will still be I telling myself something, I doing something. So I will still continue to be relying on my action, my achievement, my capacity. But in the second verse, Muruganar Swami has revealed to us there is no such thing as my capacity to do anything whatsoever. And that volition has to go. Muruganar Swami says in his song, Yennale yadondrum iyaladu. It is impossible for me to do anything whatsoever. Anything whatsoever means to say, even the effort at self-enquiry is happening only by divine power. And that alone is enough for us. That one effort alone is what we are required, so called required to do. Even that happens only by the supreme grace. Sri Nochur Venkatraman says, gives the example of the verse in Akshara Manamalai, where he says, Kantam irumbu pol kavandenai vidamal kalandinod ivippai Arunachala, like a magnet draws the iron filings, you, and then the iron, once the iron filings are fixed to the magnet, then they after some time become themselves magnetic. Like that, let us remain one, says Bhagavan. And Sri Nochur Venkatraman points out, when the iron filings are drawn to the magnet, it looks as if the iron is moving towards the magnet. The iron filings are moving. It looks like that, but the work is being done only by the magnet. In Singapore, there is a science museum where there's a very, very sweet, interesting dance of iron filings. The beautiful dance is there. We can see that dance. Even on YouTube, if you go and you look, try to search for dance of iron filings, we will find that so much of movement, such a fantastic scene is created, like the scene in the world is created, the dance of Shiva, the dance of Nataraja. But there is nothing. Actually, none of those filings are moving. It is the magnet which is doing all the work. So, it is the magnet alone which is doing everything. Everything. So, when we recognize that there is nothing for us to do, there is nothing for us to experience, there is nothing for us to do, then everything will get absorbed into the self. What is there for us to do? Krityamasti kim swasthitim yataha. Bhagavan says, that is what he has quoted us for us today, Nandakumar sir. And again, the same concept is given in Ulladanarpadu also. Aham kritimyo lasati grasitva kim tasya karyam parishishtamasti. What is left for him to do? There is nothing left to do because everything has been achieved. That's why Jagadishwara Shastri says of Bhagavan, Sarva Aramba Parityagi. In his Sahasranamam, Sarva Aramba Parityagi doesn't start anything. Doesn't start anything at all. Everything, if something happens, he moves along with it. There is no volition at all because there is nothing to be achieved. So when one is blessed through the power of self-enquiry to experience more and more the bounty of the self, then gradually one will understand that there is nothing to be done, nothing requires to be done, and there is no one to do anything either. The self alone is, this is what the immense grace of Bhagavan is blessing us with from moment to moment. And when through habit the mind moves outward, it is calling out to us and supporting us, giving us the bridge of self inquiry to get back, to get back, to get back and abide in that bounty. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Namo.
May I request Vaibhavji and Pratnama to chant the Sri Ramana Stotram? Namo Ramana, sir. Namo Ramana, Pratnama.
नमो रमण भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सत्य सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्मिमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि ॐ महासेन महंसेन जाताय नमः ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः ॐ गुरवे नमः ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः ॐ महोजसे नमः ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलस्थिताय नमः ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः ॐ सहायाम्बासहायवते नमः ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः ॐ तीव्राय नमः ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः ॐ पितरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः ॐ तपोमयाय नमः ॐ उदासीनाय नमः ॐ महायोगिने नमः ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः ॐ सवित्रे नमः ॐ स्थिराय नमः ॐ कपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः ॐ त्रिगुणातीताय नमः ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः ॐ विराजदशलाकृतये नमः ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः ॐ पूर्णाय नमः ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः ॐ गम्भीराय नमः ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः ॐ दक्षिणस्य निधाय नमः ॐ धीराय नमः ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः ॐ स्वराजये नमः ॐ महर्षये नमः ॐ भगवते नमः ॐ ईड्याय नमः ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयानवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशूलाचलऋग्बोधस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिवृन्देन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादकसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ अनिच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणादृशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुदराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनाम पूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थानोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्याजलिं प्राप्यतः दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशसारात्मभावं गतः निर्निष्ठस्वरवीरनित्यतपसां लोकान् पुनासे प्रराट्। तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
नमो रमण, नमो रमण का, नमो रमण प्रार्थना वैभव जी, नमो रमण उज्जवल जी एंड रेवती माँ।